I mean, we've spent millions dealing with it, buying Narcan. We could use help from the state and the federal government because it's just absolutely wiping out budgets all across the state and the country.
What are those conversations with the state and federal government on that?
Well, I think that candidly that there's a growing awareness of the crisis, but not the emergency nature of the crisis. You know, this is like a natural disaster. We need immediate help to our police and firefighters who are dealing with these ODs on a daily basis, which, by the way, is emotionally
And what does that help look
taxing.
like? Is it increasing the police force? Is it treatment facilities? Yeah.
In the short term, we need a lot more money for Narcan because it's wiping out our budgets. Number two, we do need extra to be able to hire more police and firefighters because they're being so taxed by going after all the ODs. But longer term, bigger picture, we need, right now there's a limit to the drugs that will help you function as a productive human being if you're an addict to heroin, that will keep you off of heroin. And they limit the number of prescriptions for that medical assistance. They need to radically increase that. They need to radically increase the number of licensed doctors who can prescribe the medical assistance that addicts need to stay off of heroin. And we need reform to the prescription culture that overprescribes opiates. The heroin epidemic is a public health emergency ravaging the entire country. The bad news is it's everywhere. The good news is that it's everywhere. You know, this isn't a drug that only affects the inner city or poor people. It affects everyone, city, suburb, rural, urban. And so everyone is aware of it. That shouldn't be the case, that you only care about it when it affects everybody, but it certainly is the case. So we're not unique in dealing with this awful issue. My own views are that so much of it is driven by the overprescription of opiates, Oxycontin, and all the rest. And certain people have a genetic disposition to become addicted to opiates. This goes back hundreds of years if you study the history of China and the heroin trade, et cetera. But so first is, I think there needs to be reform in the medical community nationally on the overprescription of opiates, number one. Number two is we have to accept that people who become addicted are going to need medical assistance to live functional lives. This crisis is taxing our police and firefighters in a major way. That is also, because they're so distracted administering Narcan to save people's lives who have OD'd, they have less time to chase the gun violence and other gangs. And if you look at our crime stats last year, when the carfentanil hit the streets, was exactly where we saw an increase in gun violence because our cops were so busy and our firefighters were so busy dealing with heroin ODs that the bad guys took advantage of the vacuum and there were more shootings as a result. So this is a major public health crisis that has safety implications, not just for the person using it, but for the whole community because it taxes so much of our police and fire resources.
I think on the Narcan side, one of the things we need to do is when our officers, whether it's our EMTs or our police officers, encounter someone, we have to make sure that we have the option of holding them. If we believe that they're going to be a danger to themselves or others, we should be able to put them on a hold temporarily and allow them to then make the decision if they want to go into treatment rather than releasing them. Because we have some of our EMTs are treating the same person 3, 4, or 5 times, and guess what happens? On that 4th time, they could kill themselves or they could hurt somebody. I mean, look at all the incidences we have with people getting in cars. Kids in the car, they're causing accidents. Every single time we have someone in kind of with us, and then we release them, we know that there's a risk that they're going to hurt somebody. A lot of the overdoses were not necessarily related to the number of people using heroin, but the type of heroin. So we had carfentanil laced heroin, and it's disastrous, it's dangerous, and it's tragic. And so the introduction of that heroin into our community all at once caused the need for all that extra Narcan and a lot of overdoses.
But now Narcan's becoming less effective, right? We're hearing people are needing like 7 doses now.
Because of the synthetic nature of the drug. And so one of the and what it's done, I mean, you think about all the lives lost, and it's really a sad state of affairs. But you think about the fact that this was an issue in our community even before that. The heroin use was already apparently on the rise, and the introduction of this synthetic version just made us realize how very tragic this can be, that people die. and can die. So what we're looking at is a public health approach to this, right? So we look at prevention and we look at treatment, long-term treatment, and we look at how do we root this thing out of our community altogether. And so our health department is going to be leading our law enforcement and some of our community partners to come up with a solution for how we do just that. We need to make sure that we're dealing with needle exchange issues. We've got multiple generations of people using the same needle. I mean, hepatitis C is a big deal. AIDS is still a really big deal when people get, share needles. And that's another issue. We need to make sure we have many options for treatment. So right now we're focused on inpatient treatment, which is expensive. It's about $60,000 a bed for inpatient treatment. Outpatient treatment is about $3,000 to $5,000, and it allows people to continue their lives. Medication-assisted treatment is really effective. So we're asking our health department to take a look at all of these options and put it together in a plan that's going to work. And we still need to make sure that we're using Narcan so that we can save the immediate lives, because we can't allow people to die.
Well, first of all, I just want to say it's another example of there's been no strategic focus on this either. Again, we major and minor arguments. You said it, we average about, I think, 20 to 25 per week heroin overdoses. And it's definitely an epidemic that requires a systemic response. And when people get locked into hopelessness and they get locked into substance abuse, you can create a cycle. It's very difficult to get out of because we have a system, particularly our criminal justice system, focuses on making it hard for people who have made mistakes to come out. So we have to definitely look at ways. We can't do this as a city alone, but we can make sure we're leading to figure out ways to get help for those who need treatment without locking them up forever.
And what does that look like?
Well, that looks like stressing treatment over just locking people away, particularly those who are in substance abuse and get addicted, because often it's, you make one wrong turn and it can affect the spiral of your life. But you ought to be able to, innovation works best when people are able to come out of their circumstances no matter what. So no matter what mistakes they make early on. Austin Allison, who is the founder of Dot-Loop, he is a supporter of mine, and he created a company called Dot-Loop and it sold for $127 million. But if you judged him by his past, he had a severe criminal record in high school, but was given an opportunity to turn his life around in college. There are tons of Austin Allisons that may be on heroin right now, but they can't get the opportunity to get out because once they get trapped in the system, you become locked in it.